Okay, so let's talk about how the leverage index arbitrage platform increases a client's certainty. If we look at the five different asset classes we originally started talking about, traditional investments, IRAs, 401ks, and stocks and real estate, and even the Roth IRA too, all provide an uncertain outcome at an uncertain time. We don't know when the market is going to boom. We also don't know when the market is going to crash. And the biggest challenge that this creates for a client is that it becomes very difficult to plan for the future, especially if they need a particular amount of retirement income at a particular time or at a particular age. And that's what makes the Index Universal Life Insurance policy such a valuable component of their overall portfolio because it drastically increases certainty for that client. And here's what I mean by this. In this example here, we'll assume that a traditional portfolio is equally diversified, 50% equities and 50% bonds. Now, let's assume that the client is paying for the living expenses from this investment portfolio. The challenge is that they don't want to spend so much money that there isn't enough left over to pass on to generation two. Now, let's say for the sake of argument, they don't have kids or they are not interested in passing on a large sum of their assets to generation two at the time of death, and they want to enjoy the majority of their wealth and spend it during their lifetime. The challenge still remains that there is a huge uncertainty regarding what the market is going to do. And so they may even be concerned that they're going to spend too much and not have enough in the later years. And the worst thing would be is if they outlived their financial assets. So a client in this predicament will ask themselves, well, geez, maybe I should take on a little bit more risk and invest in potentially higher yielding assets. Well, the problem is that if they try to swing for the fences, those potentially higher yielding assets could also produce greater losses, and that actually multiplies their level of uncertainty. Now, to play devil's advocate, if they don't get more adventurous in their overall financial portfolio, they may have concerns that their returns won't outpace their living expenses and inflation. And so there's also a concern of playing it too safe. So what we recommend is reallocating their overall portfolio and introducing life insurance as a hedge against that risk and that uncertainty that they're concerned about. As an example, if they reallocated their assets into three different buckets, one bucket being a more conservative portfolio of, say, 30% equities and 70% bonds, another bucket that is more aggressive, comprised of, say, 80% equities and 20% bonds. And then the third bucket is the cash value life insurance policy that acts as a hedge against that risk. So in this type of portfolio construction, the client would take drawdowns from the conservative account to pay for their ongoing living expenses. Our software then has an algorithm that will calculate just how much that client will need to live on by building in a particular rate of inflation, and it will also calculate what the ongoing cost of the life insurance would be. So this conservative bucket is going to fund both of these expenses. And by calculating the client's life expectancy, our software's algorithm will calculate just how much they can reallocate to the more aggressive account while still making sure that the client can draw down enough income to pay for both their living expenses as well as the cost of the life insurance policy. That alone drastically increases the amount of certainty that a client has in terms of their own lifestyle expenditures, as well as making sure that there's a certain amount that they'll be able to pass on to generation two via the life insurance policy. It also allows the client to get more adventurous in their overall investment philosophy because their living expenses, as well as how much they're going to pass on in the form of inheritance, are both accounted for. Our software's algorithm will be able to calculate what the maximum amount of reallocation from conservative bucket to the aggressive bucket would be in both the best 40-year period and the worst 40-year period out of those 121 different 40-year periods that we analyze. The reason this is so powerful is that if the client wants to invest in things like private equity, cryptocurrency, biotech, things that have a potentially much higher yield, but also come with substantially more risk, then this can be very exciting for a client. Because if the aggressive portfolio crashes and burns, their living expenses are already accounted for, as well as the inheritance that they hope to pass on to generation two is also accounted for via the life insurance policy. However, if the aggressive portfolio performs wonderfully, the client now gets to enjoy those higher yielding outcomes. Those outcomes could, in theory, allow the client to do things they only dreamed of doing, or pass on even more wealth to generation two, in addition to the certainty of the death benefit from the life insurance policy. This particular investment philosophy is called legacy investing and is typically done with extremely wealthy families. As an example, here's a family client we're working with whose estate is worth over $1 billion and they have $100 million in liquid investable assets. During the best 40-year period that we modeled, the three-bucket approach produced a 49% greater outcome at the client's life expectancy, which was age 86. That's over a $200 million increase in outcome at age 86. During the worst 40-year period we analyzed, our three-bucket approach produced an outcome of 46% greater. So even if you're not a billionaire or you don't have $100 million in investable liquid assets, you can still access the leveraged index arbitrage platform. If you'd like to learn more about how premium finance life insurance works, you can actually pick up my book on Amazon. It's called Premium Finance Life Insurance, The Key to Effective Estate Tax Planning. This is actually me on the back here. This is back when I had hair. I have a little bit less hair now. My wife wanted to kill me when I buzzed my hair off. But you can also download the ebook version of this book. If you go down to the very bottom of this webpage here, you can download the book for free. And then lastly, if you'd like to inquire to see if you qualify for leveraged index arbitrage, go ahead and click on Contact Us at the very top of the webpage here. And one of our representatives will get in touch with you, usually within about 48 hours or less. So again, I'm Darren Sugiyama. Glad you could join this webinar, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great day.